a lot of basements and crawl spaces have sump pumps.
Yes, they
and
do.
probably if they don't have them, they should.
They should have them. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about sump pump maintenance, and maybe some things that homeowners should know to have with their sump pumps.
Well, let's start with a sump pump. It's very simple. Underneath a slab in a basement, water accumulates under the home. And when it rains, or even if the water table's kind of high, it's got to go somewhere. So water always seeks a low common point that has an easy egress. And so water flows, and basements are built with drain tiles, and it flows the water into an area in the house that, looks like a pit. It's about yay deep, and it's got a lid on it. And in there's a pump. And basically there's a riser on the pump. And it kind of works like in your toilet. When water gets to a certain level, the pump kicks on and evacuates the water. And the water goes out through what tends to be a this color-looking pipe. And it goes out, and you'll see a hole in the side of your basement slab, or even in the wood, depending upon what kind of design you have. And it leads out into your yard, and that's where the water tends to go. One of the things that we talk about with sump pumps is their useful life is probably anywhere between 5 and 9 years. Okay. And it really is a function of not time, but how many times it turns on and off. Okay. Right? And sometimes you can hear your sump pump turn on and turn off. So if you happen to live in a home where it's on and off all the time, then your useful life's going to be a lot less. Right? And so it's one of those things, again, where you don't know you need it until it's not working. Just like an elevator or a photocopier, right?
Right.
When you do replace a sump pump, what you want really, in our opinion, is a commercial grade sump pump. You can go down to a Home Depot or a Lowe's and buy a sump pump, but really those will wear out even sooner. And so, other than your family, your biggest investment and commitment is your home. So it's worth spending a little extra to have the highest quality equipment and professional install, in our opinion. When you do replace a sump pump, this is what's called a check valve. And a check valve basically prevents the water that is pumped out this way from coming back in. Right? And once again, as a pipe leaves the home, there are things that can crawl in the end of it. There are debris that can get in it. It can get clogged. All kinds of crazy things can happen, and you want to make sure that any liquid that's outside doesn't flow back in and fill up your sump pit. Otherwise, what happens is the pump just keeps running, and then the next thing you know, it's like a pot of water boiling over. It's got nowhere to go. So people don't really know about this thing called a check valve, but it is part of the standard installation when you put in a good sump pump to make that happen. Other options, some people have battery backup units. So if the main power goes out in the house, right, most of the times because there's a storm, most of the time the storm is water. And so when you need power the most, you don't have it. So a backup sump pump actually works just like a regular sump pump, except it tends to be battery operated. And there are many choices there.
Now, isn't there also some sort of a backup system, if you will, that actually runs on water?
Yes, and so that's called a water-driven sump pump, backup sump pump. And really, in order to use that, you have to be on city water. So if you're on a well, first of all, it doesn't work because it requires that constant pressure, right? And provided the city's pressure is good, and it should be, it runs an impeller in this pump and then evacuates the water out using the water that comes in.
But probably not as quickly as a mechanical sump pump
Not as quickly, but the one value of a water-driven backup sump pump is you don't have any maintenance issues. So with a battery sump pump, you got to make sure the battery is good. The batteries tend to last 3 to 5 years. If you're like me, downstairs, all the cobwebs are around all these appliances that you take for granted until you need them. You can put in a water-driven unit and really kind of walk away and forget about it. Right? So that is one of the things. They do cost a little more, but once again, it goes back to that value proposition for your home for you to consider. So it's choice.